Hi there. In this video, we'll pick up from a couple of previous posts and a video where we discussed ad hoc and virtual visit workflows and the use of a custom launcher. One of the most important scenarios and use cases that we described in there was launching from an EMR, specifically allowing physicians and clinicians to be able to focus on the patient rather than fiddling with apps looking for something to manually enter in contact information when trying to reach out for a virtual visit. So in this video, we'll get a little bit more granular on that concept, including a simple method for creating that experience, which builds on the Sample Power app that we have discussed previously. We'll see in some of the details of what we actually pass from the EMR and into the app and how it works when you actually get it into the app. And then lastly, we will expand on a few of the other methods and capabilities that are surrounding this. So without further ado, let's get right into this. So we'll start off with the configuration that's needed in the EMRs. And I'll start with just a simple conceptual architecture here. Basically, we'll start and we have the clinician who's going to be in some sort of a session. This might be a virtual desktop that they badge into. It might be on a mobile device app that they access their electronic medical record system in. But basically, they'll have some sort of session that they're logging into there. And then from that electronic medical record system, they will click a link or a button that's going to launch with context like a phone number, an email address, or an ID, that virtual visit launcher app that we talked about previously in those videos. So from their perspective, they don't have to do any kind of app switching. It's just kind of a natural feel as they go through their workflow in front of the systems they're already using today. So what does this actually look like? How does this, passing actually happen? Well, I'll start by going through an example of the information that needs to be packaged up and passed from the EMR into the app. And keep in mind that, most, healthcare organizations around the EMR, there's a change control process that governs these kinds of updates. So we're not looking to go outside of those boundaries. We want this to be an approved change that works with the way that y'all are doing things today. That's okay. We can keep things above board. Also important to call out that we're not replacing EMR functionality. This is just a way to be able to enable low-code building of those apps in the context of the EMR that clinicians and physicians are already using today. So let's take a look at just kind of what gets packaged up and passed. And to do that, I'm going to start off in Excel to show an idea of what this formula actually looks like that would help us out and what actually gets implemented in the EMR. And effectively, we're going to be combining three things. One is a Power App URL, and two of them are pieces of information that we use to be able to make that call. It's either a phone number or an email address to which the request is going to be sent. This one, the first one, that URL is going to come from Power Apps. We'll see where you get that in just a moment here. The second two pieces come from the EMR, the encounter that you're on or the patient demographic information that you're going to be reaching out to. That's the kind of where the rubber meets the road in what gets passed from the EMR to the app that you're going to be launching. So those get kind of mashed up together into a final URL that will launch the app that looks something like this, very long thing that no person is going to actually want to type in. But if we just get an example of what that looks like, we can go, paste that URL into the window here. It's picked up that phone number that we had. If we see the 555-123-4567, and we could call directly or invite to virtual visit. It's also picked up that email address that we had passed in there as well and is ready to be able to create and send the link to them. So fairly straightforward. Now, what does that look like if we're actually launching not from Excel, but from an EMR. And for that, I don't. I have an example here using the Open EMR demo of kind of what that would look like in the context of an EMR system. So obviously, this is the public demo of Open EMR. So this isn't actually live PHI type of information, but it works well for a demo purpose here. And as you can see, I'm on a patient's record here, and I can see some of their contact information. And this has been enabled as a hyperlink. So this is an example of how it could be launched by clicking on a hyperlink from here. So just note here before I click it, 555-444-3333 is the work phone, and we have a contact email that's in there as well. So here, as the clinician's going through their workflow, it launches this call dialer, which allows them to call them directly using the current device they're on, or invite them to a virtual visit, bringing in the options of sending an SMS message via a phone number, or by sending it to their email address that they have on file. Also, you could add in additional participants if they have another person that needs to be invited, or you're inviting someone like a translator service or something like that. You can do that all from one place before sending out the ad hoc virtual visit link. So just a couple of different ways, seeing both kind of the guts of what the link looks like and then how that would actually be processed in the context of an EMR. So moving on to the next portion of this, how does that actually get picked up on the application side of things? So using that sample app on GitHub as a reference, how does it actually work with this information, and what can we do with that? So I'll go ahead and move back over here, and I'll go first, I'll actually show that we have that virtual visit custom launcher sample code deployed here. And this is actually where we can first get the details of that to be able to get our web link, that base link that's used to do the launching as part of the workflow there. So this is where you physically get that. But then as you edit that application, there are a couple of places where you're pulling in those details that are being passed to the app. And if I start out on my main screen here, you'll note that when the screen becomes visible, it's setting a phone number parameter, and it's pulling in this parameter called person phone. And if we look back at the phone number that we had here in this long URL, I'll zoom in a little bit. But if we look at that, there's this person phone equals 555-123-4567 that's being pulled in, and the same concept for the email address over there. Well, in this app, we are pulling in that person's phone and setting it to this parameter name. So then the phone number that we end up using in here, the default phone number, is going to be that phone number parameter, whatever happened to be passed in through that URL. And then the same thing if we go through to the inviting to a virtual visit link, we're pulling in an email much in the same way. Both of those things can be processed out of the email. Now you might have one and not the other. That's okay. You might have a more simplified app because you don't want to offer multiple things like that. Keep the workflow even simpler for the person who's going to be using this launcher. All of that becomes your creative control here, because the barrier to configuration of this type of low-code app is much lower than trying to do something that's going to change the way your EMR operates. So by giving this way for you to be able to enable your EMR to work with a low-code platform like Power Apps, you can start to bring this doing more with the applications that you have. So from there, let's flip back over to our deck here and just talk about a couple of additional topics around this, because I think there are a couple of important things to key in on here as other considerations. Now, one of those is which details to physically pass into the application. In this example, we're using the email and phone number. Now note, we're not including any PHI in that URL. It is a secure URL, but as a design decision here, we're just doing the kind of the contact information, some of that demographic information. So we're only including what's appropriate for the scenario. You can certainly pass other things as well. As an example, let's say you're using a master patient index, and you want to, instead of passing along some of the details from the EMR record, but you want to pass along that master patient index identifier, and then use that in your Power App to be able to bring in other details that help power the app. That's another design direction that you could go to in this case of alternative approaches. Additionally, you can have some more more specific workflow that you build into that. Maybe you want other parameters. There's no magic to the ones that are in the sample app. They're just the simple email and phone number that were included in there as a basic example. But if you wanted to pass in details like a first name because you're passing it in as part of a simple call script, or maybe you're putting together something that uses an email template that is going to allow you to pick from some various templates that are going to be used in a message that's sent out to them. Or maybe it's going to power something that goes through to a more formal marketing campaign, and it's kind of the bridge of information to get them started on that journey. All of those types of things are what are going to help determine the specific things that you might pass in doing that, and specifically what the approach to that would be. URLs, the longer they get, the more you're trying to put in there, the more that it can kind of overburden the things that your app needs to be thinking about. So, if you're trying to keep something simple and low code, don't try to pass in a bunch of extraneous information because you might not need it. These are the kind of things that can help make sure that as you get started, you're not going to get kind of mired with a bunch of extra work that you're creating for yourself if you don't need to. One last thing before signing off here is a couple of thoughts about the future on this one. There is a capability within Power Apps specifically around named formulas that's looking like it'll be a better way to be able to grab some of that information from the parameters in the URL without having to do a separate set function like we saw in there, where it said set and then I was calling out a variable name and details like that. There is a feature that's currently in preview called named formulas, which I've been using in kind of development and test environments, and I'm really looking forward to that being the way to do it. But again, living in the right here and right now, if we're doing that, the fully publicly supported method of doing that is to still set the variable through kind of the example that I showed in the demo. So that's about it. There's not much more to chat about on this one. Hopefully this has been helpful in getting a little bit deeper into how that pass off between the EMR and the Power App actually works. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments or in the blog. And I plan on continuing with more content in this series, as it is a topic that's coming up quite a bit as organizations are trying to do more with less. So if you have ideas on this series, go ahead and feel free to leave those in the comments as well. Thanks, and have a great day.